sometimes to say, okay, I'm going to go back to my childhood. What's something? The mind goes blank.
Mm-hmm.
The protection mechanisms can just kind of like, whoop, take
Right.
it out. And another like little hack to get there is, what patterns am I recreating? What behaviors am I doing that I don't want to do? What do I keep seeing? What feelings keep coming up? Am I feeling hurt? Am I feeling betrayed? Like, what keeps happening in my life that I don't want to happen anymore? And to take that and start to follow it back. When have I felt that before? Till you get to like the first time that you can remember feeling it.
Yeah, the earliest memory.
And allow that to start to do that, where you get curious of those ways. So sometimes you can start to grab it and take it on a little journey itself to help you unfold and uncover.
We'll make it out and fall in love tonight.
Podcast ready. Are you podcast ready?
Yes.
What do you do to get ready for the podcast? You want to share that with the people?
What do I do to get ready?
What do we do in general
I
to
wake
prepare for this podcast?
In the morning.
I wake up in the morning.
I just realized. No, I can't say
Is that a song?
It is a song, but
Okay.
I just realized that who they were saying they were like, and I'm like, oh, not gonna say I'm waking up like that person.
I don't know.
That's
I
actually.
don't remember the lyrics.
Oh, I think those ones are forgettable.
Okay, not good for this.
No,
not good for this episode.
No, that song is no longer
Oh,
being
what's
played on
this?
the radio. What is that?
What is this? Go ahead and give me my
What?
camera, babe.
Yeah.
Oh, whoa, oh.
It looks like a really cool
hold on,
coffee
I'm
mug. Who's
drinking.
that say? What?
What's this? A brand new Steph and Craig show mug. Yeah, if you haven't heard, we got merch.
We got merch, and like, fill your cup. Allow your cup to overflow with. We are cup half full kind of people.
Go to
right?
our website, stephandcraig.co, and get yourself some merch. Right now, there's a t-shirt up there and some coffee mugs. And we got more coming, but
We definitely do.
yeah. We have so many things.
Right?
Do you think we do too much?
Never.
I think we do too little.
Too little.
Yeah, I feel like I wish we could be operating at like a 9.5 as far as
9.5?
like the level of things that we're doing and the output and the content and all the different avenues.
Okay.
But we'll get there one day.
We will get there one day.
Yeah.
I don't know when that is. Like, you do a really good job. I kind of feel like we're at a 9.5.
Yeah, maybe.
I feel like you do a really good job.
I would love to show you what my version of 9.5 looked like.
Yeah. Well, my version of 9.5, you have hit it. You hit it and you hit it. I don't want to say quit it. Hit it and win it. You hit it and win it.
Hit it and forget it.
No. Nailed it. Success.
I have an idea of what we can talk about today.
It's good that we discuss it right now. What's your
Right?
idea?
Inner child healing.
It's definitely a new topic for us. We haven't discussed that. Let's do it.
Somebody commented on one of our posts where they, it's like they don't know how to do it, or they wish that they could get to that space, but they feel like they're, too much time, trauma, history, whatever might be in the way, right? So they don't know how to connect to those parts. So we can talk about it in a little bit, but
Yeah.
I thought it might be a good idea to kind of discuss what inner child healing has looked like for us, both individually as well as how do we support each other really well in that space. And we can go towards that a little bit.
We can go towards that. Also, like, I feel like I resonate with that. That is a very valid feeling like there's to have a little hair
on your face
probably.
there. No, just right there on your face.
Is it still there?
There you go.
Is it my eyebrow?
No.
It's intentional.
No, it was just a little strand.
You're like, you got a little something right here.
Got these two hairs like center in the middle of your face. Just wipe
They're
those
kind of
off.
weird. Like, did you make them darker? I did. No, but I recognize that feeling of feeling like there's too much. There's too much. I want to start, but there's too much. I couldn't even possibly. Like, I felt that.
Yeah.
I felt like there's too much. I very much relate to that. And like, to think about it as a whole, it is too much. To think about everything that you have to get through and everything that's been stacked on top of that, it is too much when you put it all together in one. But just as you didn't accumulate it all at once, you can't heal it all at once. So it's taking itty bitty pieces and working that. And a lot of the things that I got was, I felt like it was all or nothing. I very much felt like if I wasn't healing everything, then it was worthless. I wasn't doing enough. So like that feeling that overwhelm actually keeps you in that space. It actually keeps you there because you don't know where to start, and to try and do it all at once is so overwhelming. So finding somebody to help you, even just like one little thing at a time, even if it's just like listening to a podcast, if it's like following certain creators, if it's like reading books, it's just one thing at a time where you're just bringing knowledge in, bringing tips in, and bringing tools. I know I'm going right for it, but it's just like I resonated with that so strong. It's just like one thing at a time. And what can I add? What's one thing that I can add to my life to help it? What's the happy thing that I can add? What's a benefit that I can add? What's one healing choice? Instead of worrying about trying to take out stuff, what's one good thing that I can add?
Yeah.
Would be where is that okay? I went right for it. I just felt like that came.
Baby, I love it when you go right for it.
I know, but
it's like, my favorite. Just go straight at it.
What do you think about what I said?
I think you're spot on. I mean, I think that, it's all about those little baby steps. The one little thing builds upon the next, and then the next, and then the next. And the whole idea of like, it doesn't happen all at once. There is no failure in this space. It's all about practice. It's pick it up when you're able to. If it's something that falls to the wayside because of life is too crazy. I think that's the whole idea about healing in general, right? Whether it's inner child healing or any other type of inner work where you're trying to process things. It's a journey. It's an experience. And it's, what are you missing? You're looking around. What's up?
Please keep going.
Okay.
I wasn't on camera, so it's safe for me to look around. I was like, are my new flowers up? And I was like, I couldn't see.
Do you
and
like
then I
them?
verified in the camera that they were, and I like them very much.
I stuck them there. We can
You did a
you can
good
switch them up.
job. Well, I like them a lot.
What that reminded
And
me
now
of
you're
too.
distracted because I was like, where are my flowers?
Right. Yeah. If you don't watch us on YouTube, go check us out on YouTube. And you can see the flowers that we're talking about. But your flowers, this is a side note. They're beautiful. And it also, like, I think we need to do a full-on Halloween episode.
Yeah.
Where we completely redecorate the set for Halloween. And then, I don't know, talk about Halloween stuff or whatever. We can do a spooky episode of the podcast.
There's a problem. Well, I mean, it's not a problem for me, but it might be a problem for you. So I'm just going to, full disclosure here, let you know what you're walking into.
What is it?
If we decorate Halloween-y, there's a good chance
you're going to want to leave it up.
I'm not going to take it down.
Yeah.
I'm going to this is my accoutrement.
We could do like a whole month, the entire month of October.
So I get even more attached.
Yeah.
The Halloween decorations
Let's
we
do
got
a
last
two-parter.
year, a two-parter?
Yeah, let's do like the week of Halloween, wherever that falls. Those 2 episodes will have our Halloween stuff up.
I don't think you're hearing me. I'm not going to take it down. Those flowers themselves aren't moving. In fact, I want to go back and get more because I want those in my room as well.
Yeah. We need to do costumes too. We'll do we'll do some couples costumes.
Oh, couples costume?
Yeah.
Okay. What should we be?
I don't know. We'll have to think about that. If you have ideas of what we should dress up as this Halloween, send them in.
I was going to dress as myself. I have my cloak and my hat, and I was going to put that on and be like, haha.
We should totally do
couples costume is a little different.
Like,
what should we do?
We should totally do like the because it's making me think of Roseanne and those Halloween episodes back in the day, where because Roseanne had the best Halloween episodes.
She did.
Like out of all sitcoms, out of all time, her Halloween episodes, those Halloween episodes were the best, hands down.
Roseanne wins.
Yeah.
She wins.
Yeah.
Those were the best.
So,
do you remember our first Halloween party couples costume that we did?
Was it the Romancing the Stone?
It was.
Yeah, that was fun.
It was. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
That was good.
We might be, because when does Beetlejuice come out? When does the new Beetlejuice come out? It's got to be in October, right?
I mean, it has to be.
It's got to be when it comes out. So maybe we'll do something from that.
Okay.
If you had to pick a character from Beetlejuice to dress up as, who would you be?
Well, back when Beetlejuice came out, obviously I connected with Miss Winona.
Yeah.
But now
she's the mom.
Oh, now she's the mom. I'm like, now I think it would be Moira, even though she's not Moira in it. I can't see her as anything other than Moira. But now she's the mom.
Yeah.
And she has a cute, feisty little. Okay, I might still be Winona. I might still be Lydia.
Right?
Yeah, I think so. How about you?
I don't know. I mean, we haven't seen the movie, right? We got to
We
go watch the
haven't.
trailer some more, but I don't know. I mean, I guess I could be Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
I guess, right?
You could
Right.
be anything you want to be.
I've got a good Michael Keaton. I can just do my Batman voice.
I went to Hollywood Studios with my mom when I was 16.
Yeah.
Hollywood Studios, Universal
Hollywood
Studios.
Videos?
No, it was in California.
Okay, Universal Studios.
Universal Studios. I don't know why.
Hollywood Studios. It's where the action happens in Hollywood.
I got totally freaked out. We were in line for something. I don't remember. But Beetlejuice was running around. And he like set his eyes on me. And he comes over and he's like, oh, I'm going to talk to this one. Did his thing and came up and like his tongue out and was like coming right for my face. And I was like, ah! I totally freaked out. It totally freaked me out. It's funny now.
Yeah.
But yeah, he played his character well because I was very much, my mom was just like, ha ha ha. It's like, he's going to lick me. Who is this?
Let's do that. That'll be fun.
Okay. Well, maybe.
What do you mean maybe? What the fuck else? Like, what do we have to wait for?
Well,
Do we have to get approval? No, we can do it. Sorry.
That was intense. I was thinking, like, for when we did Romancing the Stone, I dyed my hair.
Yeah.
So I might have to cut my bangs even more. Dye my hair. Like, I like to play the part. If I'm going to do it, I go full out.
Go all out. That's good.
Maybe.
Let's do it.
I don't know.
Okay. I guess we're going to talk about this off camera. No, we're doing it.
Somebody has commitment issues. I don't know if I want to commit to those characters yet.
Do you still feel like you have commitment issues? I mean, we've been together for 12 years.
I'm very committed to you. I'm just not committed what we're going to dress up for as Halloween.
Maybe we'll come up with a different costume idea.
No, it's good. It is good. I'm just trying to figure out how to make it work with what we have because I'm also frugal. So I'm like, do we have what we need already in the house? Can I make it work? And
Maybe you look like Winona Ryder. Like, it's not going to be difficult.
Well, thank you. I need hair dye. I was thinking of going lighter, but I think I'm going to have to dye my hair black.
Yeah. I mean,
cut some awesome bangs.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be difficult for you. I'd probably have to do like makeup in the whole 9 yards.
I mean, have you seen Beetlejuice?
Right.
So a little bit.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
I think so. That'll be fun.
It'll be way fun.
Spray my hair green. I can't remember if he's bald. Is he bald? Or
No,
does he's got crazy hair all over,
It's
right?
crazy green hair. He's got a white face and crazy green hair.
So my hair works. We'll make it work.
Make it work.
We'll
There's
figure it
green
out.
hairspray at Walmart.
I don't think we're going to get... Oh, you said green hairspray.
Yeah.
I thought you were like green spray paint. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be spraying my hair with green spray paint.
I'm tired, but I'm not that tired.
I'm not that committed to the role.
Oh, who's got commitment phobias now? Still after all this time, huh?
Yeah, I'm not going all in with green hair.
Can we
with
dye
green
your hair
paint.
green? Maybe we can dye it.
With Kool-Aid.
With Kool-Aid?
No, I don't think my hair would take dye. It's too dark.
Is that a challenge?
I'm going to wake up with green hair one morning. Sweetheart, take some of these mushrooms and go to bed. It'll be all right. And then I just wake up with the full green fro. Okay, let's get back to inner child.
Inner
healing.
child.
Yeah.
Inner child healing likes Beetlejuice.
I think one of the things that I was thinking about in regards to it, because it's something that we've done for years. And it's also, I'm sure there's like very specific direct, like you can find people that are going to be like, this is how you do inner child healing. I'm going to take you on this journey. This is the process. All of that stuff is really good and valid. And the way that I think about it, at least how I work with it now, it's much more in the realm or in the vein of like parts work, IFS work, where I think IFS is really conducive to inner child healing because you're working with different parts of yourself, right? And all of those different parts oftentimes come from traumatic experiences or just experiences, I guess. I always throw trauma in there, but it doesn't necessarily always have to be trauma. And those parts come from childhood oftentimes. Mm-hmm. And I want to side note. Oh, goodness.
You are good. I'm ready for your side notes.
with any type of healing, what we've learned over the years, whether you're trying to go towards inner child stuff or, I mean, just literally like trying to go through the process of healing anything, it's incredibly difficult to do if you're still in a unsafe environment, or if you're in if your life is still chaotic and crazy and there's trauma happening around you, or just, yeah, that is so important, because you can't start the process of trying to heal if you're still in chaos and if you're still in fight or flight. So it's really challenging, because you have the desire maybe to heal, you have the desire to do work, but I think that's a lot of times what people get stuck on is, I can't do this, or I try and it doesn't work, or how do I do it? It's most of the time because you're in activation still. Your nervous system is still stuck in those fight or flight responses, and you're still continually, constantly in some sort of activated state. And the only reason we can speak to that is because that's what we were in. I mean, we were constantly in fight or flight responses for the vast majority of our relationship and the vast majority of our lives, which meant there wasn't a lot of healing happening. It was just a lot of survival and a lot of, not troubleshooting, what's the word that I'm looking for, the phrase that I'm looking for?
Trial and error?
No, it's damage control.
Damage
right?
control.
Yeah, you're just constantly chasing your tail, trying to fix one problem to the next because of whatever life's throwing at you and whatever life's dealing. And so the idea that you're going to take time to reflect and go inwards and start healing and processing and reflecting and all of that stuff, it's incredibly challenging. It's damn near impossible. So what I would always recommend in the beginning, if you're trying to do any type of healing work, as far as, therapy, which is huge, right? Get help. Anything that you're doing to try to go inwards and heal, is you have to learn how to regulate your nervous system and get it to a state where it's not like permanently fixed. Obviously, your nervous system is one of those things that's kind of in a fluid state all of the time. But you have to learn how to find those opportunities, and not even find them, but create those opportunities to calm yourself, to calm your body, to calm your nerves, to calm your emotions, so that you can then have like the full range of capacity that you have, meaning mentally, emotionally, physically, to be able to access and go towards these type of things. And it's hard. It's one of those things that we don't get taught in childhood. And it's something that doesn't really get taught a lot in adulthood either. It's not something that people talk a lot about. Mm-hmm. But if your nervous system is out of whack and always activated, healing's going to be a challenge. So I would say address that first and foremost. And there's so many different ways, there's so many different techniques, there's so many different avenues, but somatic work, somatic healing, getting into your body, learning how to first acknowledge and recognize. I realized I'm talking pretty quickly.
Okay.
So I'm going to slow down.
I think you're doing really good. Yeah.
I'm going to take a sip from my new coffee mug.
Oh, I guess I should leave it on that, huh? Yeah.
But yeah, slowing down. And that alone is really scary for people. Mm-hmm. When you are in activation, slowing down is hard. So find ways to do that for however that looks for you. And it can be things like getting out in nature, going for walks, taking a bath, doing some breath work, even just like setting down everything for 3 minutes and, drinking some water or whatever you like to drink, tea, coffee, whatever. And then once you get into the practice of recognizing what your body feels like when it's calming down and when it's in a calm, regulated state, then the next step, I think, is recognizing when it's not. Because when you're operating in those states on a consistent, regular basis, it's your baseline norm, right? You don't have awareness that it's activation all the time. You just think that this is what life feels like. It's constantly like this, right? So you have to recognize, you have to have an opposite in order to recognize. You have to have something, like without light, there would be no dark, right? And without dark, there would be no light. Yeah, you have to have an opposite in order to compare it to and to contrast it with. So get calm and then recognize when you're not calm. And that will help in the process. At least that's what helped me, was finding moments of like dropping into my body, feeling what my body was feeling, slowing down in my body, just being present with what my body literally physically was feeling. And oftentimes it wasn't emotional, it was physical. Finding the spots in my body that had pain and tension and just being able to breathe into those spots and relax those spots. And then usually what would happen is 15, 20 seconds later, that tension would immediately come back and then it would go to somewhere else. And I just got in the habit of recognizing those and going towards those and relaxing those. And that became a practice for a long time. Looking for the perfect gift for someone that you love? Try thinking beyond the material things and get them the most unique, unforgettable gift possible. A custom song from Songfinch. Songfinch lets you create an original studio quality song inspired by your own life and the ones you love. It's completely unique, personal to you and your story, and will last a lifetime. Songfinch walks you through an easy 4-step process to create your original song. Just tell them who the song's for, provide some personal details about your story, and let them know the type of song that you want. Then pick your favorite Songfinch artist, or get matched with one. They'll write, record, and produce your custom song in just 4 to 7 days. Head over to our website. It's stephandcraig.co and click on the link for Songfinch. When it comes time for checkout, use the code Steph and Craig. You're going to save $20 off your order. Once you get your custom song, be sure to tag us because we want to hear it. We're probably a lot like you, where we had some pans that had been kicking around our kitchen since we met, actually. They're over a decade old, and it was time for them to go. Lucky for us, we found Heritage Still. Heritage Still offers premium cookware that's made right here in the USA. It's actually made here in our backyard in Tennessee. We ditched our old pans and we got ourselves an entire set of Heritage Still. All of their cookware has 5-ply construction, which gives you superior heat distribution and retention when cooking. They also offer a lifetime warranty, which is really hard to find nowadays. Their cookware is versatile for all cooktops. We have a gas range and we absolutely love the way our Heritage pans heat up. They're chemical-free, oven-safe, easy to clean, and Heritage Still is committed to sustainability. They use environmentally conscious practices when producing their cookware. For listeners of the podcast right now, you can save 10% on your order. Head over to heritagestill.us/Steph and Craig, and don't forget to use the code Steph and Craig at checkout to save that 10%. But that's kind of the big caveat of, any type of healing work has to start off with, I think, that type of calming of the nervous system. Otherwise, it's just chasing your tail, right?
Yeah, when I could get to that point of where I could start working on calming my nervous system, that was a real game changer for me to be able to have that space. I couldn't start there though. I wish, I felt like, I remember having these conversations with you and talking about calming. And I'm like, that wasn't, I couldn't start there with where I was. And everybody's different, right? That was your starting point. And that's really, my starting point was, I felt like I had to perceive calm. And I there was calm that was coming out, and that in the quiet times, it was my reaction. It was allowing myself to cry, to freak out, to fall apart because I didn't feel safe, So it was I would go into the bathroom was my place. So many times I'd go into the bathroom and just come apart. But then I would skip past that calm that would come after the come apart. And I couldn't allow that because there was so much here. And then I would go right to the reaction. So I would have an emotional, I don't know, it's where I overflowed, right? An emotion would bust out. And then I would go into reaction that was planning what I was going to do next and how I was going to handle it, how I was going to shut off my heart, or how I was going to put my foot down, all of the things that were reactionary, not action oriented. And that calm that just hides there, that hides between emotional fall apart and action it felt like I could not grab that because I had to go from one to the other. And so to allow that space to where I could finally start to get that calm that you were talking about, have the emotion will release, have the crying, have the anger, have the whatever, I felt like I would scream a lot, but it was always screaming in my head. It was always screaming, and I would go through the motions. And sometimes I would just be on the floor with tears just coming out and fists on the ground and mouth open, just screaming silently. I felt like I could only scream silently. And so they would have this space, and then this is what I'm going to do about it. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to handle this. And I'm going to protect my heart or choose these bad habits, choose these things. And so that little space between here's all this emotion and now I'm going to breathe for a second and allow that calm in. It took me a long time to get there.
Yeah.
And that calm, that moment of started to change what I did next, which was make a choice, which was an action instead of a reaction. And it wasn't a calm to choose better. It was a calm, and now I'm finding more choices. But that calm is so crucial, but it felt so elusive, unavailable, but then you find it.
Right.
But then you find it.
That's the
it
thing,
took
like
a
we were
long
talking about
time.
either, right? It's just these small little incremental steps. And so eventually you're getting a glimpse of it, and then a glimpse, and then a glimpse. And then those periods of calm get longer and longer and longer. And then eventually you're like, oh, I've been pretty calm for most of the day. I'm in a nice regulated state on a pretty regular basis. And yeah, it takes quite a bit of time to get there.
It also, calm doesn't feel safe when you're used to activation.
Yeah.
So when you start to calm, it's almost scarier. She's like, oh, I have to do something. This is scary, or something's going to, like, you couldn't even allow that, the slow down. You had to skirt past it so fast. So those moments, like, I know everybody says, take a breath, take it. But there's so much there to actually be said that I just wanted to elaborate just a little bit more on what that looked like for me, what my process was, and how hard that was to find, and how helpful it is in that. And it can be in a parking lot. Like I said, mine was on the bathroom floor. I've done a lot of my healing on a bathroom floor, a lot of connecting to myself on a bathroom floor, a lot of connecting to Creator on the bathroom floor, because that's where I felt safe to feel. And I felt like that's the only place. So those, like, you never know when it's going to show up. It's, I've done it in a grocery store parking lot before. Sometimes that's where it happens. But, now when you can find those, you can do it on a walk. There's so many different ways that you can find that little bit of calmness. Once you started really practicing, like, how did you say it? Like, you expanded, that space gets a little bit longer and a little bit longer. And it starts somewhere, even if it's just that 2 seconds, right? Calm. Okay, I did it. I practiced calm.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is really important is, now, if you're somebody that's like, I want to do inner child healing, I want to try to get there, I want to try to work with those parts of myself, great. And then if you're somebody that's like, I guess this wouldn't really apply to this person, but I want to speak to it anyways, because in society, I think a lot of times people are like, I had a great childhood, I don't need to go back and process anything from my childhood. Or the criticism and judgment of, like, why is it always about childhood? Like, grow up and move on, right? Everybody had whatever happened in their childhood. It's in the past. And so I think there's a lot of times where people minimize not just inner child work, but minimize the idea that you have things from your childhood that are affecting you in your current adult life. And I mean, I don't believe that. I believe that the case is damn near everything that's affecting you in your adult life started in your childhood. Yes, there's these acute instances throughout adulthood where you might have had some sort of traumatic experience, 100%, right? Those things definitely happen all the time. We've got stuff that happened in our adult life that we're still healing from. However, the foundation for how you experience the world, the foundation for your emotional health, your mental health, the foundation for how you experience relationships, your self-esteem, all of these things that shape and mold who you are today as a person, as well as how you interact in the world and interact with other people. The starting point for all of it is childhood and those primary relationships that you had growing up, both with your parents, siblings, family members, society. Everything back then is what laid the foundation for where you're at today. And if that foundation was laid poorly and had some missing pieces, and on top of it had some complex trauma and some abuse and everything else that a lot of people have experienced, and neglect and abandonment and all of that stuff, whether we want to believe it or not, I think, and I truly believe, that's where the root of the vast majority of things lies. And so that's why I think inner child healing is so important, because otherwise, again, it's kind of like goes back to just chasing your tail, right? I know that all the things that I tried to fix up on the surface in our life and in our relationship and in my own space, I was just looking at it through the lens of like, I have actions and behaviors as an adult that I'm trying to fix, and I might, make one or two improvements or have some awareness, but the patterns and the routine, and not the routine, but the consistent issues weren't changing. My emotional state, my thoughts and beliefs about myself, my self-esteem, all of those things were not changing until I went back and started processing things from my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so fix your nervous system, or at least bring awareness to your nervous system, and then, right, wrong, or indifferent, wherever you fall. And that's the other thing too. If you're like, I don't think I had anything wrong with my childhood, so I'm not going to go back and look at that. Or I think it's a waste of time, or I think I should, grow up and just be an adult and deal with your shit. That's great if that's the way that you see things. And if that's the case and you're listening to this podcast, then you'll probably turn it off at this point. And I encourage you to do so, because this isn't for you, right? Not everything is for everybody. But otherwise, if you want to start going towards things from your past, the next thing that I think comes up, and we both have experienced this as well, right? And we talk to people a lot of times, and when we used to coach people and work with people, it was kind of the same thing, where memory is a slippery thing. Memory is one of those things that is, it's just weird, right? The way that our brains store memories, the way that our brains remember things. And so a lot of times, I think when people initially start trying to connect to the past and starting to do some of this type of work, they don't have memories about things. So they think that they can't do any work around their childhood or around traumatic experiences, because they just have big blank spots. They just have areas where they don't have memory. So we're not neuroscientists. We're not talking about the way that the brain works and everything like that. But what we do know, or what I do know from experience, is that memories change over time. Memories evolve, memories shift, even just in the present, right? You can look back to yesterday, and it's almost like you can pull memories up from yesterday. And if you go towards those memories a little bit, they start to take shape even more, right? If I was going to ask you, what did we do yesterday? I don't even remember what we fucking did yesterday. So that's the way memory works, right? But were you going to say something?
I was going to give you an answer. Like, we
What did
recorded
we
a
do
podcast. We,
Yeah. So when we were recording yesterday, right, we can think back to that moment. And if we pick something in that space that we do remember, just one maybe insignificant thing, and then you start describing it, you start thinking about it, you start going towards that memory a little bit more, it's almost like the smoke or the haze or the fog lifts a little bit, and you start to get a little bit more clarity and a little bit more clarity and a little bit more clarity. And before you know it, a picture starts to take shape. And that's been my experience with childhood memories, where I'll go towards them and sit with them and think about them and look at them and process them and feel them. And next thing I know, they start to evolve a little bit more, and the smoke starts to clear and they start to take shape more. And then the next step is the judgment that comes in and says, well, that's not a real memory. That's a fake memory. You made that up in your brain. You're not remembering it correctly. That didn't really happen that way. All of that narrative that takes place, you almost have to bring that along for the ride, right? Because if you just listen to that voice that says, well, you're making things up, or that didn't really happen, or that memory is just something that your parents told you, or you looked at a picture and then you took that picture that you saw and then elaborated on it and created it even more in your head. And all of that stuff, I think you just have to bring along with you, rather than think that it invalidates the experience or invalidates the memory, because it's a mixture of all of it that's what I believe. I believe that memory is a culmination of all of these kind of different influences. It's the stories that were told as you were growing up. It's the, we all have experiences in our family that were funny things, family stories, family memories, family experiences that got told over and over and over again. So we might not have the actual memory of the event, but we have the story around the event that we've heard over and over again. And getting very specific about, well, if I don't actually have the memory, or if I don't actually remember it, isn't important when it comes to the emotional side of being able to validate and heal the wounds that happened in childhood. It's just not important. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, right? Mm-hmm. There's times when very specific details are necessary, but memory does not allow for very specific details. Like even, that's what, like in criminal justice, in, the court of law, eyewitness testimony sucks because there's so many different factors that play a role. So somebody might remember something that didn't happen and they've got camera footage of it or something like that. And somebody might testify to like, no, I saw this person or I saw this thing. And then they're like, well, survey says that's a lie, right? That doesn't negate the experience that person had based off of whatever they might have experienced in the moment. So I think it's a slippery thing that we sometimes get caught up in society and definitely criticize and judge. And I know I did for a long time, where I got so specific of like, I have to remember things exactly as they happened. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to trust that what I was remembering was true, or trust the healing process that would come from that. Does all of that make sense?
It does. It does.
Do you want to speak about it a little bit from your experiences?
Yeah. There's also like the other perspective of there's a good chance that there may have been some gaslighting and some reframing of your memories that were done by caregivers, and not just caregivers, but people around you. Like you said, the whole society. We don't need to go through the list every time we say this, just some important role players in your childhood where you have a memory and they're like, that's not, like, you're invalidated. That's not what happened. This is what happened. And you like maybe got punished for telling the truth. You maybe got punished for how you remembered. You maybe got punished for your experience. And also you may have witnessed them retelling the event to other people differently and like coercing you in a sense to go along with it. There's so many different ways that people will shift and not want you to remember it the way that things happened. And so once that has happened, you start to play that with yourself. Maybe there was like traumatic experiences where you need to remember every detail exactly as it happened, or you're invalidated in a brutal way. They're using that as an abuse tactic over you. So then your brain is scared. It goes blank. You don't know how to trust your memories. There's so many different ways that trauma affects your brain. There's so many different ways, like memory itself, the way that the brain works it's based off of an event. It's based off of perception. It's what happened, and you will find ways to make it not so or invalidate it as well. And then you have the same thing, if I can't remember this, I know something's wrong here, but I don't have a memory to draw a connection to why this isn't okay. So I'm going to invalidate myself. Or I have the memory as to why, but nobody else seems to share that. So therefore I am wrong and I'm going to invalidate myself. A lot of it comes to really invalidating yourself and not trusting yourself. And the truth is we're human. We make mistakes. Sometimes we get it wrong, and our brain will hold that and be like, remember, you were wrong here, so you're going to be wrong here. If your brain can make it easier for you to survive based off of the coping mechanisms and the survival tactics that you learned as a child, then it's going to keep playing those, which is going to mess with your memory. So a lot of putting I have to remember this exactly doesn't always work. And there's things in my memory that are so buried There are things that are so buried through all this. I still haven't uncovered everything. And I felt like I had to. I have to see it all. I have to. And it was just like a self-punishment in a way. Like, I don't have to see it all. I can feel these feelings. And instead of trying to, like, I need the details. I need the literal the literal picture painted out for me in order to heal it. I can just start moving with, what am I feeling? What's coming up in my body? As you said, like, where is it in my body? What does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? What's the temp? Just all these different things, and work with moving that. And that sounds a little wild, but it's really beneficial. You don't always have to have the story, the memory to be able to retell it. You can move with the emotion that you're experiencing with that. And sometimes doing that allows the memory to form, and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important thing to know, is the emotion of, especially when it comes to trauma, and especially when it comes to early childhood, trauma that took place, that oftentimes you're not going to have clear pictures and clear memories of it because of what you just said, right? Trauma affects stuff so significantly. It's not just after the fact, right? Trauma can obviously shape our brain differently, and all sorts of different stuff that they're kind of realizing now and doing studies on and everything like that. But I remember when I was a police officer, a big part of, and you obviously know this as well too, right? Because you had to do it as a dispatcher. But one of the things that you have to account for, that you're trained about and that you're aware of and that you have to be cognitive of, is what happens in these intense experiences, because you're in activation, you're in fight or flight. So hearing oftentimes will go. Your vision, that's what tunnel vision is, where your peripheral starts to shrink and you can only see what's in front of you. So all of these things start to shape and mold your image and your memory and your perception of the experience. And so you have to learn how to keep your peripheral vision open so that you can see the whole picture. You have to learn how to keep your ears open so that you can hear everything that's going on. And it takes practice. It's something that's really, really difficult. And everybody's different. Everybody's got different levels of, I don't want to say abilities. Like, it's not a superpower. It's just, everybody's different. And it's not even just like, well, I can do this thing and now I can always do this thing, right? It's again, it's not even a skill set. It's something that's just dependent upon where you're at that exact moment in your life.
Right.
So I used to be able to move through experiences consciously that were really hard, difficult, scary experiences. And hopefully, I know that there were things that I missed, right? You can't see and hear and do everything, but I'm constantly scanning, looking, I'm stretching my peripheral consciously so that I can continually absorb information. I'm remembering to breathe so that I'm continuing to get oxygen to my brain, all of that kind of stuff. But I know that, like, if something were to happen today, that skill set isn't as finely tuned as it is. And it might just be on a bad day. I might be off, right? Or I might just, for whatever reason. And so if you take that information and you apply it back to when you were a kid, when you have fuck all awareness of any of that stuff, you're literally just in that animalistic part of your brain that is trying to survive. So whatever that fight or flight response or the freeze response, which is dissociation a lot of times. So now you're completely checked out of your body and over here doing something else because whatever's happening or whatever you're going through. So all of those things obviously are shaping and molding your ability to remember the experience. Mm-hmm. That's when, like what you were just saying, right? The emotion of the experience is what's really important. And that's an important thing to remember, is if you're trying to go back and reflect and heal and do some inner child work, it's going to be less about the specifics about what happened and more about what that part of you was feeling in the moment, which means you're going to have to get really good at feeling emotions. You're going to have to get really good at being able to tap in and feel what you're feeling in the present moment and connecting to your emotional state right now in order to be able to go back and connect to those emotions as a child.
Yes. Yes. And one of the things that I'm I'm just going to speak to because it's sitting here like gnawing at me right now as we're talking about how these memories can play out. One of the childhood trauma memory incidents that I had to get through, I had broken it down. Like my mind had fragmented this memory into different times. Like I had this piece here, and then I had this piece here, and then I had a hint of this piece and a lot of black space. And the way that I was remembering it was like this happened, and then another time this happened, and another time this, but I don't have a lot of this, and I couldn't really piece together this one because there was so much, and it wasn't through, like I had help going through this. I didn't figure this out on my own. It was one of the sessions that we had went through, one of the long sessions with, assisted with one of our therapists, that these memories, I finally pieced it together. It was the same memory.
In
And
your mind, and originally it was different events?
yeah, I couldn't as my little kid brain, I had to break it down into smaller chunks. I couldn't handle that happening as a whole.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind when all of a sudden it was like, oh, this was the same thing. And I still have a really big black space there. I still haven't got all that. And I think it was like, I can really like bring it back to why I like to be by myself, because I was left alone at the space after. And I don't know what happened there, but what I experienced was so incredibly traumatic that I had to segment the memories that when it came together. And then after all that, I was left as a child by myself, a very small child, to handle the chaos that just happened. Medical care was needed, so they left for medical care because it was so intense that I could just like shut off. I could just shut off. And so that spot where it's just dark it's really interesting. But to see that, oh, my brain is so clever. The way that my body worked is like, this is a memory, break. This is a memory, break. This is a partial memory. And it's still all partial, right? Because I was so little, it's still all partial. But to see that it was this full spectrum, this one event, and there was more than one event, but like my brain made it many events to handle it. And so that was a real indication of like how memory works on this. And that was a way that I could handle it. That's the way I could digest it. I couldn't handle it being all at once. I couldn't handle that. And there was another time when I was a teenager and I had witnessed, I wasn't with my parents, and you know how to handle certain things with certain people differently.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was very familiar with my parents fighting in vehicles. I was very familiar with my parents fighting, and one like lashing out completely. It was the same one that would, be very like outbursts of violence, and we weren't safe in a vehicle. And I would like I would go. But
Dissociate? Is that what you're meaning?
Yeah, I would dissociate. I have like moments of like, I just would go. My memory shuts off. I don't have it. So I know that like Elvis has left the building, right? But I was riding home, was already like getting in trouble because I was later than I was supposed to be. But I was riding back up to my house with my friend and her mom. And her mom had been drinking and fighting with her husband. I think it was her husband at the time. And was just losing her shit and was driving like a maniac all the way and screaming and like punching the ceiling. And it wasn't anything new, but it was new people. It was a new space.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, I could feel that one still. And they made a really sharp turn onto a gravel road and started spinning out. And like, I remember everything just went super slow, and I could see us like aiming right for the tree and then spiraling, and like the overcorrection, we didn't actually hit anything. It was just overcorrection. And then I had realized that there was no sound, that all of a sudden everything shut off. There was no more screaming. It's loud when you're doing all that. There was nothing. My hearing completely shut off.
Yeah.
And that's so weird that it was like, I can't even access memory of hearing. So the way that you perceive an event is different from one to the next. It can be the same type of thing, different people, different day. You have a different experience. So
Like I said,
Memory
it's kind of a
is-
crapshoot
It really is.
when it comes to what your nervous system is going to do in the fight or flight, right? What systems are going to shut off, what systems are going to light up. Because sometimes, you know, you'll have something that's hyper. You okay?
I'm like talking about these things and seeing it, like I'm starting to shake.
Yeah.
My body's having this, I'm having a reaction. I'm getting into that where I want to like,
Shake
my
it
body's
off.
going to have to shake it off because I can, it drops you in. It can drop you in.
This is a really good example right now, babe, live action, what's taking place, right? So you have this memory from childhood and it's teenage, right? Same thing.
One was child, one was like little, and one's teenage.
Yeah. So if you haven't heard yet, we picked up pickleball and we're having a blast. It's super, super fun. And if you haven't started playing yet, I hope that you do soon. And if you do, we want to help you by avoiding what we did. See, when we started playing pickleball, we just went on Amazon and found some paddles that looked cool. Little did we know, but they actually were hurting our pickleball game and holding us back from being the absolute best pickleball players that we could be. And when we found out that there was a pickleball paddle company here in Tennessee, actually not too far from where we live, we got super excited. Element 6 was started by a couple of brothers who were passionate about the sport and decided to go in and make their own paddles because they needed something that served their purposes a little bit better. Lucky for us, they're now sponsoring the podcast. And I can tell you from experience that their paddles definitely make a difference. The very first time I picked up their paddle and just held it in my hand, I knew I was going to be a better pickleball player as soon as I started playing with it. And it turns out I totally am. They have paddles for everybody, for the beginner, the intermediate, and the pro level. Head over to our website, stephandcraig.co, and click on the link for E6 pickleball paddles. I highly recommend their brand new one, the Torrent, which is what we play with. When you're ready to buy, make sure to use the code Steph and Craig. Not only will you save 10%, but the guys over at E6 are also going to send you out a free gift along with your order. So pick up pickleball, pick up a new paddle from Element 6. We hope to see you on the court soon. Not too long ago, I went down the rabbit hole of trying to find us some new clothes that didn't have all sorts of toxic stuff in them. I was tired of wearing synthetic material when I worked out, when I did things like jiu-jitsu and yard work and hiking and everything like that, because it wasn't really breathable and it started to stink a lot as well. Well, lucky for me, I found Woolly clothing. Woolly uses natural merino wool, and I'm a huge fan. All of their clothes are super soft and they feel really, really good next to your skin. Their clothes are naturally moisture repellent, so when you're wearing them and working out, it almost feels like it's cooling you off. They're also odor resistant, so they don't stink after you wear them. They have a great line of men and women's clothing, and if you've never tried merino wool, I highly recommend Woolly. I've got their boxers on right now. Every episode of the podcast, I wear one of their V-neck shirts. I'm really excited for when the weather starts to change and it starts to cool off a little bit, because then I get to put on my Woolly hoodie again. Head over to our website at stephandcraig.co and click on the link for Woolly. And when you're ready to check out, be sure to use the code Steph and Craig. You'll save 15% on your order. Show them some love and get yourself a great pair of merino wool socks or underwear, or boxers, shirts, pants, shorts, tank tops, workout gear, you name it. Woolly has it. The drunk mom taking you home is teenage, right?
That was teenage, yes.
You have this experience, you have this memory, you can connect to it, you start to talk about it, and then your body, because again, these brains don't know the difference. So they're like, hey, you're playing a movie that is scary.
Right.
I'm going to start having responses and reactions to it. That's the opportunity in inner child healing to heal some of those wounds. That trauma, that fear, that anxiety is still trapped in your body in some capacity. So as you start to flesh it out and talk about it, this can happen.
Right.
You can have these actual experiences start to, take place in the present moment.
Yeah, it's the somatic of it. Like right now, it's really hard to sit here with a podcast, and there's part of me that's like, stop the podcast. I need to go finish this cycle.
Yeah.
Because that's how it gets restored when you don't allow yourself to move, when you have that frozen, just to think to sit still right now. Every time the camera's not on me, I'm like, okay, moving my body, trying to allow things to shake out, and I don't have to process. Sometimes your body, so the somatics come in, your body knows how to move trauma. It's like how animals, so you always say, maybe you can talk about that so I can shake a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, when the gazelle or the deer is running from the lion, the hyena, whatever it is, trying to survive, and then they finally get away, oftentimes you'll see it. You'll see it on those documentaries and on the Discovery Channel and everything like that, where they just have this complete system shutdown where they're shaking everything. And that's just their natural instinct to get rid of that energy, get rid of that anxiety, get rid of that fear. And they might not, I think that whether or not a deer that's running for its life is afraid, right? That's neither here nor there. It's just the nervous system doing what it needs to do to shed off all of that. And a lot of times we have learned as humans to shut those things down. And again, the likelihood is that comes from childhood, right? Crying is a really good example. It's like the basic human experience of expressing emotion that the vast majority of us at some point were shamed for and told to stop. So I think a lot of people have a hard time crying. And if you are somebody that doesn't have a hard time crying, that's beautiful. And I think everybody would do much better off. Like we would all be much better off if we could all learn how to not just cry more, but allow ourselves to cry more and not stop apologizing for crying. That's one thing that I wish we could like start a campaign about, right? No more saying sorry when you start crying. Just cry. Let it all out. Cry as much as you want. Cry as often as you want. Lord knows there's probably some tears in there that need to come out from when you were 4 years old.
Probably.
Yeah.
There's a backlog. There's like that would have really embarrassed me another time to start to feel that. And that would have caused me to shut down, to be able to like go into it and start to shake it out, allow my body to move.
I had a terrible experience. I guess terrible is kind of an extreme, but is when I was a police officer and there was this incident where this woman was, she was going to kill herself, and I was able to kind of convince her not to and kind of talk her down from that experience. And we got her some help. And when it was all said and done, I was in the parking lot of the hospital because we took her to the hospital and everything. And my sergeant at the time came out with me to kind of check on, how I was. And I just remember standing there at the back of my vehicle and my body just started shaking, where I was just like, oh, it was so hard for me to kind of control it. And luckily I was able to just kind of sit there and shake for a minute and let it go. And that felt great in the moment. It didn't feel great in the moment. I was embarrassed in the moment, but luckily my sergeant was very loving and kind, and he wasn't shameful in any way about it. And just getting that tension off, that fear, that anxiety is so beneficial and so helpful. And that's just one example of how obviously our bodies process trauma and everything like that. Let's talk about.
Before we move on, though, so we've touched on it a few times, and I just want to circle back to bring awareness to it, because you do have the people that are, as you mentioned, get over it. It was your childhood. Just want to dwell in the past, grow up, quit being dramatic. All of the things that they come up with, and why not only will they not do it, but why you shouldn't. Because most of the time when they see somebody doing it, they're like, you should not.
Judge it and criticize it, make fun of it.
If you listen to the things they're saying, it sounds like what their little kid was told. Like they're repeating how they were told, they were invalidated.
Exactly.
And it's not saying, it's not like, oh, let them be mean to you because they had a hard childhood. It's a different point. It's like an understanding. You can have empathy for them. It doesn't mean you have to listen. So when you're feeling something and you're willing to go back and look, when you're willing to work through part of your past and you're getting shamed for it, if you can see the person who may be shaming you as that wounded part and realize it's actually about them, it's not about you, it can help free up space for you to keep healing. They don't have to. They might. Maybe when they start to see, there's maybe all of these things that aren't your responsibility or your ability. You can't force somebody into healing. You can't force somebody into looking at their stuff, but just maybe that can free up a little space when you realize it's their wound, their little kid that is parroting back how they were taught to invalidate themselves and shove it away, that still you can separate that and this isn't about me. I can feel this. I can move into this space. I hope that person gets the space to do that one day, but that's their journey. And for me, I'm not going to let that stop me on mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's really sad when you see that. It's really, and it doesn't always come from parents. Like it comes from school, it comes from teachers, it comes from siblings, it comes from cousin, it comes from movies, it comes from so many things. And it can come from parents, and it can come from grandparents. Grandparents can be very harmful
And
as
now it comes from
well,
social media.
right? It's everywhere. But to think that a kid got through it unscathed is,
Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
no,
maybe,
no,
but I don't see it.
Yeah, there isn't. I mean, we
Yeah.
always try to give these caveats of like, well, maybe somebody had a very secure childhood, but even the most idealistic childhood with the, the best parents and the greatest upbringing, and you're still going to have issues from childhood that need to be processed. And I think the sooner we can just all agree to that as society, like we're going to send out a poll, everybody agree, and then we'll be good. But yeah, it just is what it is. And trying to pretend like it's not it's just a waste of time.
Yeah.
You're just prolonging the inevitable, right? You're going to stay stuck in those patterns until you go back and look at it. So
Which you get to.
what do you do when it's time to actually sit down and do some inner child healing and do some inner child work? What would you say is the best first step?
What is the best first step?
I mean, I know that we took out, like the caveat
I
of
think we said that at the beginning. Creating space for yourself.
creating space,
Yeah.
regulating your nervous system.
Finding the tools that work. When you're starting out and you don't really know where to start, and if you have the ability to reach out to a trauma therapist, if you have the ability to reach out to trauma coaches, if you have that access, then go for that. And just know, like my number one with that, if you do have the ability to do that, that you do not owe your therapist, your coach, whoever's guiding you, you don't have to be loyal to them. Like their job is in that space to help you with that. And if that isn't working anymore, you get to find somebody who can. Like a good one would want you to. If they're not, like if it's not working, find somebody who can. And that doesn't mean if they're pushing you to look at things that are hard, that you're like, well, this isn't working for me. Please. But like if you have that access, that's the first step, is to find someone. And if you don't have access, because so many people don't have access to that kind of help, start looking at resources. It is social media accounts, which is a benefit. It is podcasts. It is books. So many good people are writing amazing books. It's seeing what other people are doing and literally trying things on. You don't have to do it the way that this person does because it worked, but there might be some things that work for you. So you're literally like taking things. Maybe you like to journal. Maybe you can't stand a journal, but you like to paint. Maybe you can't stand that, but you like to go for walks and walk it out. There's so many different things of where you get to what is working for people. And let me just practice that technique. Let me practice that for a minute. How does that feel? What is working for me? And where am I finding accessing part of my emotions? Where am I finding accessing a little bit of release? Where am I finding a connection point? And it might be in yoga. It might be in dance. There's so many things that are out there that can feel overwhelming. You don't have to do them all, but just start with something. Does this help me?
Yeah,
Does
go
this
towards
feel
what
good?
you feel drawn to.
Yeah.
And start there. And I want to talk about, if you're ready for work and you're ready to start going towards it, but you feel like you don't know where to start, create some space to find some space where you can just be by yourself, or ideally with help. But then start thinking about what in my childhood needs healing. What part of me from childhood needs healing? Just ask yourself these very simple questions of like, is there anything in my childhood that I need help healing from or with? Like a part of me back through space and time and ether that is raising its hand and wants to be seen and validated and loved. And oftentimes, and when I say oftentimes, it's not always 100% of the time, but the vast majority of the time, what's going to happen is you're going to have some memory that comes up. It's not going to be some very clear picture. It's not going to be like this exact moment. I was 7.5 years old at my birthday party. Somebody yelled, whatever. It's not going to be that specific. It's going to be a very faint thought and a very faint experience that's just going to start coming to you. So that's the thing that you want to start going towards. And oftentimes it's not going to be clear. Oftentimes you're not going to have an understanding of what it is. But if you allow yourself to just sit in that space and softly go towards it and ask like open-ended questions like, what was I feeling? What was I wearing? How old was I maybe? I don't know if those are open-ended questions. Are those open-ended questions? I guess I don't
Just
know what the
getting
definition of
curious.
open-ended
Just
questions
getting
are.
curious about
Get
what is
curious
coming
about
up.
it.
Yeah.
And allow yourself to sit in that space and see what comes next. And that's the way that it works. The memory will start to come. You'll start to have sounds sometimes, smells sometimes. I can remember things from childhood that are very much, because as a kid, I remember playing. And when I would play, I would be very much in the world that I was like experiencing. I had one of these the other day. Where was I? What were we doing? I think we were out and about. I don't even remember. Oh, I wish I could remember where it was that triggered it, because I was actually going to talk to you about it in the moment. But when I was a little kid, we had a big bush in the front of our yard. And it was the type of thing where it was this big, huge, gangly bush that you could crawl into. And then inside the bush, where all the branches were, was a spot that I had kind of cleared out or had been cleared out or something like that. And so I would go into that space and had like a little cave kind of fort type thing. And I would play with my Hot Wheels and play with my cars. And so I remembered this moment of like being inside of that little bush, inside of that little tree, playing with my, cars in the dirt. And it just flashed in the moment. Like, again, I wish I remembered where, because it was recent. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. And if I had the time and the space to sit there, and I can do it again, right? I can bring forth that memory again. I can go back to that spot and just sit with that memory and remember, like I can remember what the dirt smelled like. I can remember what it felt like inside of that bush. I remember there were times when I would be in there playing and cars would drive by on the road, or, I could, people would walk by and I felt like I was hiding inside of the bush and they couldn't see me, and all of those kind of things. Those experiences and those memories are what start to take shape and mold. And the next thing you know, you're not creating like not manifesting. Sorry. You're not making up the experience, but that's how it works. I think is those memories start to come back in small little chunks.
To uncover it.
Yeah. Start to uncover it and put the pieces together. And the next thing you know, you might have a flash of something else. You're like, oh, wait a minute. That doesn't make sense. And then you're like, oh, and then you start to see things, and then you start to feel things. And because of all the factors that we've talked about throughout the episode, that process looks very different for everybody, depending upon your traumas, depending upon your experiences. And sometimes it's going to be easier, sometimes it's going to be harder, but it is doable. And that's a big thing. I think that the healing process is lengthy and it's hard and it's difficult, but it's possible, right?
Yeah.
It's not this insurmountable thing. I don't think there's anything that somebody can experience in life, even the most terrible, most tragic, horrible experiences in life, we can heal through. We can get through.
There's another, like, to add on to that, another practice, if it's, because those are like great. That was really great. But I know that sometimes to say, okay, I'm going to go back to my childhood with something, like the mind goes blank.
Mm-hmm.
The protection mechanisms can just kind of like, whoop, take it out. And another like little hack to get there is, what patterns am I recreating? What behaviors am I doing that I don't want to do? What do I keep seeing? What feelings keep coming up? Am I feeling hurt? Am I feeling betrayed? Like, what keeps happening in my life that I don't want to happen anymore? And to take that and start to follow it back to, when have I felt that before? When have I felt that before? Till you get to like the first time that you can remember feeling it.
Yeah, the earliest memory.
And allow that to start to do that, where you get curious with those ways. So sometimes you can start to grab it and take it on a little journey itself to help you unfold and uncover. As for me, when you start to like, what is something from your childhood? My brain would go
blank.
Nothing.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point, because sometimes it's like a memory from your 30s, and then it's like, wait a minute, I remember this thing. How old was I? Maybe I was in my 20s when that happened. You're like, oh, wait a minute, I was actually 17. And then you're like, oh, 17. And then hold on a second. I think No, wait, I was 7 years old when I first,
Right.
I remember, like, that's how it works. Yeah.
You just follow the trail back.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with you if you can't remember something. Like if you still can't pull something up, there's nothing wrong with you. And it's the same old thing where just because you try it once and it doesn't work, or, you know, you think, well, I'll never remember anything from my childhood, so I'm not even going to waste time with it. Or every time I try, I still get blank spots and I don't remember things. Or I might be able to remember up to a certain point and then it just is all blank. Sometimes blank spots are because of trauma. And sometimes blank spots are because I think sometimes what happens is we tell ourselves stories so much that you have a story programmed into your brain and into your thought processes and into your experience where you just think that you can't remember things. That's a story that you've told yourself over and over again. Oh, I don't remember anything from my childhood, or my childhood was great. I don't have any trauma there. I don't have anything to think about. That's a story that you've told yourself over and over and over again. And it's like your brain is just checking things off the list. Remember something from childhood? Nope, we don't remember things from childhood because I can't. And it's like you can't, or you can't and you haven't had success in the past, but now you might be able to. So every time is a new, fresh opportunity to go towards those spaces and practice and practice and practice. And again, we can't express or stress the importance of help. And like Steph said, it's not always available, but there are these techniques out there. There's plenty of ways to access ideas and thoughts and experiences around this type of work for free, given all the different resources that we now have access to. So,
Yeah.
anything else?
Let's start somewhere.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah. Just being curious and being willing to like want to start looking at it. Your brain's going to start working in that. Emotions that are going to start coming up.
Intention
Parts of
is
your
a
body is going to
very-
start bringing things to the surface.
Intention is a very, I think intention is the thing that changes everything. As soon as you have an intention to go towards something, that thing starts coming towards you. And so if you set the intention, eventually you're going to get to that place one way or another. So.
Yeah. And it takes time. It takes a lot of
Time, love, and tenderness.
Yeah.
Anything else, baby? I can't think of
that's it
anything
for
else
right
we
now.
could really
That
talk
time
about,
is
right?
a big one too. You think, well, I don't have the time. You do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about, we had that episode it's probably been a while now, with Natalie Deering, and where she kind of guided me on that IFS thing. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it in time, but that was a good example of some inner child work using IFS therapy. That's internal family systems. If you go down that rabbit hole, that's a really good avenue for inner child work and healing and everything like that.
You can start by listening to that episode of the podcast. It was a good one.
Yeah, Natalie
She's
Deering,
got a lot of really good things.
Yeah. We're going to be on her podcast too soon. I don't remember when that is.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, we'll be sure to share that and everything as well. So probably have more inner child shit come up from that experience.
Have fun, Craig.
Steph's just going to sit back and watch that one. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Go get yourself some merch. Remember, go to stephandcraig.co. You can get yourself a coffee mug. All the sponsors that we have for the podcast, if you want to support the podcast, that's a great way. Usually the promo code is Steph and Craig. And if you go to our website, you can find the links for those as well. We've got merino wool shirts that we're huge fans of with Woolly, E6 pickleball paddles, Songfinch. That's a big one. Those are super cool songs. So if you have an anniversary or a birthday coming up, that's a great way to give them a surprise, right? You get a song specifically created for your loved one. And then Heritage Still. Like, we love those frickin' pans of ours. So go check those out. And that's a great way to support the podcast. Should we go, babe?
Let's do this.
Expect the best.
I always mess that up. One more time, Craig.
Expect the best.
Time for the greatest.
Got a wild ride. Wait and see, you and me. We were meant to be.
We want to make something perfectly clear. This podcast is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as a substitute for professional advice. We're sharing with you our own personal experiences and insights, things we have found to be helpful on our healing journey. But we are not licensed therapists. If you need help, it's important to seek out a qualified professional. Remember, we believe that we all do better when we heal together. See you soon.